So when you combine the software with the machine, you get powerful creativity, and you can edit and combine designs and really create, like I said, anything you can imagine. So we're going to look at some of the advantages first of owning software. Software simplifies our sewing tasks by giving us the opportunity to place embroidery designs and stitches and buttonholes or embellishments exactly where we want them. It makes our projects faster because we can better visualize the combined designs and lettering in the colors we want and even on the fabrics we want to use. Also, if you're creating multiple items of the same hand towel, the same tote bag, the same purse, software can help you be consistent with those projects. The duplicating functions that are in the software make the projects very consistent and accurate. We also embroider on many different types of fabrics, and the software can adjust your designs for a certain fabric with a simple click. And we don't have to know how to make the changes that occur in the background for the special fabric we use. So if you haven't ever been tempted to try software before, I'm hoping you'll keep an open mind and think about all the possibilities with software. So first of all, I want to address some time-saving advantages. Many of our machines today have fantastic editing functions, but working on a software screen to combine, duplicate, rotate, copy, and delete is so much easier than trying to do that on a small software screen or a small machine screen. In addition to being faster, there are additional editing functions that are available in the software that are not available in a machine. So I want you to think about how long it would take you to combine the design that you see on the screen. Copy, pasting, mirroring, and adding lettering. The larger screen and shortcut commands that are in the software make this faster and easier. Adding lettering is easier and faster than using when you're using a keyboard. And even though some of our machines now have the QWERTY keyboard, like the letters on your computer, it's still much easier to type them in rather than to touch letters that are on the screen. We can preview lettering and designs and change it in an instant in the software as well. We can also create buttonholes, and if you sew garments or if you add buttonholes to pillows, this is a nice feature to have. You'll love how easy it is to embroider your buttonholes. Aligning is quick and easy in the software, and if you have the cut work tool, you can even add a cut line in your buttonholes to perfectly cut those buttonholes that you create. It takes a little over 6 minutes to embroider and cut 5 buttonholes in a hoop. Think about how great it is to see your design in the colors that you plan to use on the fabrics that you plan to use. And even if you have a machine that changes the thread colors, it's much more time consuming. In the software, you pick the brand of thread that you want and click on a button called Match and Assign All, and the software will update all your thread colors. If you love to embroider, you probably collect a lot of designs, and the software includes a program called the Embroidery Library that lets you search for designs as well as artwork, regardless of where you put them when you downloaded the design or the artwork. So it's much easier to find those designs regardless of whether they're on your hard drive, on an external hard drive, on a CD or a DVD drive, or on a USB stick. Only certain machines can ungroup and resequence designs, but with software, it's fast and easy to resequence a design, and resequencing a design can make a design stitch more efficiently because it will decrease the tie-offs and jump stitches in a design. With the software, we can also take any hand embroidered pattern and turn them into embroidery stitches, again, saving us time when we want to embroider that special design. We also have a lot of customizing features, and many of us use our designs to break apart and take bits and pieces and combine them back in a way, rather than creating designs from scratch. So this is what customizing is. You're taking bits and pieces of a design, such as the one you see here on the screen, and you can convert that design into many other types of designs. And you can even convert designs into applique with a click of one button. It's easier to delete part of a design and edit that type of stitch that's in the design in the software. We have 225 different levels of undo, so that makes you able to experiment and try things out before you even stitch your design. We can take outlines and add those outlines to any design that doesn't have an outline, and then we can convert that outline into an applique, again with a simple click. And this will work as with lettering as well if you want to do an applique lettering instead of a stitched letter. Software gives you more control over changing the properties of the design as well. You can change the stitch type, you can change the density, you can change the stitch length. Some of these things can be done in some of our machines, but you certainly have much more control in the software to change the design as you want to see it. As this design that you see on the screen has been changed in density, and also the fill has been set in from the outline to give a unique look to the design. You can also make improvements in the design quality, such as changing a start and stop or inserting travel stitches. Travel stitches are those stitches that go from one design object to another object that are buried under objects that are on top. And inserting travel stitches will decrease the number of tie-ins and tie-offs, which take time when you stitch. So you're going to improve the efficiency of designs by adding these travel stitches. In addition, designs can be reshaped to form better stitches in the software. And if you have a bulletproof embroidered design, you can decrease the density of the design to make it more pliable. Another great advantage of software is visualizing. You can visualize your project on a particular article, as you see on the t-shirt. It helps you decide on the size, whether or not you need to rotate the design. You can also kind of experiment with the placement of the design. You can also choose a color or a fabric, and you can even scan in the special fabric that you want to use. Sometimes it's difficult to pick out colors of thread for certain projects. So with software, you can change the thread and put it on your actual fabric to preview how those colors are going to look. And you can even create your own personal thread chart from your stash of threads that you have on hand. So you can use colors that you know that you have in your sewing studio. Now imagine trying to place embroidery designs on this fabric. When you can scan in your fabric and visualize exactly where to place designs and what colors to make those designs on a busy fabric, it makes it much easier to make the right choices. Another way to visualize is within our quilter program in Designer Plus software. So you can select your quilt layout, select the blocks, add your scanned fabric, and get a feel for what that quilt is going to look like. So it gives you a chance to experiment with the different fabrics and different blocks without stitching a single stitch. So then you can make your experimentation while on the software screen. It's kind of like walking into a dressing room and trying on clothing. You can make a good choice when you get a preview of what it's going to look like. Software also will help with placement of a design. And again, we have lots of very great placement tools in our machines, but software has the added advantage of drawing a placement line. And you can see this dotted line that I've added on the baby top. And this placement line is stitched just on stabilizer, and then you can lay your finished project down, aligning the edge of a project with that placement line. This is done on a sticky back stabilizer, and so the stabilizer will hold that garment in place, and the embroidery is going to be perfectly placed on top of your garment. If you don't do garments, there are all sorts of blanks that you can add embroidery to, such as the triangle bottle wrap cover that you see on the slide. And in this case, again, a placement line was drawn and the embroidery was added. If you make your own garments, you can do a placement line to represent the front of a jacket and then place the jacket on the sticky back stabilizer and embroider and cut your buttonholes. Placement lines are also very helpful in embroidering on collars and cuffs. You can scan in your collar, draw a placement line around the collar, and as you see on the slide, the collar is aligned with the placement line that was drawn, and then you can add your embroidery. The software, again, Designer Plus software, has a multi-hooping function that lets you go beyond the limits of your hoop. So you can do embroidery totally around the neckline of a garment. Software also adds the advantage of consistency. So your projects are going to be consistent, whether you're duplicating a project or creating a gift. Those designs are going to be sized and go precisely where you want them to be. And the designs created in the software or combined in software can be aligned and stitched with 100% accuracy. So on many projects, we have only, or on many machines, we have only the grid for alignment or XY combinations in order to get things aligned. It's really quick and easy to use all the different alignment and spacing tools that we have in the software, so we can align designs in the center, on the left, on the bottom, and we get those designs aligned exactly where they need to be. Even with machines that have alignment tools, you can't specify the object that you want all the designs to align to. In the software, you simply choose the object that you want to align to last, and all the objects will align to that last selected objects. We can even accurately place and stitch zippers, and in our project today, we're actually going to do a zipper in the hoop project, so you'll learn how to accurately place and stitch a zipper. It makes it so easy to put a zipper in a project. It's very quick to digitize ties and loops, and they are embroidered perfectly even. We use a rotary cutter to cut them apart and then turn them right side out, and you can use these on your home deck projects. You can also use the scanning feature to accurately create tabs and belt loops. They're going to be exactly perfectly the same size when you do them in the software. Sometimes we don't stitch that perfectly. If you have an odd-shaped pocket or flap, again, scan the pattern into the software, and we can perfectly create that curve and repeat that same pocket flap over and over. Another advantage is achieving successful embroidery because we can adapt the embroidery for the fabric. So if we're embroidering on terry cloth or on a lightweight garment, we can take those designs and specify the fabric we use and the stitch length, the type of underlay, the density of the design, the pull compensation is automatically going to be changed based on the fabric that you pick. We can also use software to capture special memories. Perhaps you have a design that your child or your grandchild created and you would like to duplicate that design. We have several tools in the software that allow you to create designs based on your child's drawing. You can even create quilt projects based on these drawings. Or we have tools in the software that allow you to take photographs and turn those photographs into stitches. We have Artwork Canvas in Designer Plus that lets you create special projects like the pet wall hanging that you see. Perhaps one of the greatest advantages of owning software is creativity. If you love to personalize, you can create monograms and labels of all sorts. Lettering collages. We also have microfonts. So these microfonts are great for recipe towels and quilt labels. You can even make custom monogram templates that you can use over and over again, such as a knockdown template for embroidering on towels. You can create applique and get more out of your designs by taking the embroidery design and with a simple click, turn it into applique. In Designer Plus software, we have additional creative tools to create punch work, which is done with the needle felting embroidery attachment. It's not necessarily an embroidery attachment, but it's an attachment for the machine. And then we can create stump work, which is the three-dimensional design that you see. This is embroidery over a wire. And we can create cut work embroidery in the lower right corner. The software is full of decorative stitches, and these stitches can be translated into beautiful, crazy patchwork, and you can place those on your projects. You can even create in the hoop design, and we're going to learn about how that is done in a minute. You can create your own patterns in the software, and again, this is a Designer Plus feature, and you can use these decorative stitches to embellish behind your applique or put it in a pattern fill like you see in the giraffe on the left. We have gradient fills in Designer Plus software that let you take an object and apply a different density in different parts of the design. So you can create some unique kinds of embroidery design. And then we have Artwork Canvas that allows you to draw pictures and turn them into stitches. And these two designs were just created using a tool called the Blend tool. And I created 2 lines. So there's lots of possibility for doodling in the software. If you like mixed media projects, you can print your fabric and then embellish it with different embroidery designs as well. Now, before I go over the project, I want to talk a little bit about the software and our BERNINA 990, which is our new top-of-the-line machine. And the combination of the B990 and software gives you even more creative options. Creating on fabric is one of my favorite features of the B990, and the software being being able to design in the software and bring a scan into the software that where the fabric has been hooped on the 990, scanned, and then brought to the software adds all sorts of creative possibilities. So you can scan a fabric that's in the hoop, send it to the software, and then create designs right on top of that fabric. So there are two important settings. So if you have a B990 and you want to do this, two important settings that have to be chosen for success. One of them is in the machine and one is in the software. So it is important that you go into your embroidery settings and in the design position, make sure that you have the default in the saved position. So here is your default position. You click on the drop-down arrow and choose saved position. In the machine or in the software then, it's important that you select the BERNINA 9 series machine and then the hoop that you used for scanning. So in this case, I used the giant hoop. I chose the giant hoop. I want to, again, in the software, make sure I have keep hoop position selected. This is an icon at the very top of the screen. And what this does is it keeps the embroidery design off center in the hoop. So that is the key setting in the software. I will click on read from card machine, which is the sewing machine with the up arrow, and select the scanned hoop. After this is done, the design or the fabric that is in the hoop is brought back into the embroidery software, and I can create my design right on top of the fabric and be assured that those stitches are going to go exactly where I want them to go. I send it back to the 990 then and embroider the design. So all those stitches are going exactly where I place them with those two settings. Again, one in the machine and then one in the software. And then you sew your project. These finished pattern stitch bags, there were 4 different sizes of hoops used. The largest was created in the giant hoop. The next one was created in the jumbo hoop, then the maxi hoop, and then finally the midi hoop. Now this feature can also be used to create designs on striped fabric, and you can add lettering and use the any baseline feature that's in the software, so you can place your lettering exactly where you want it along your uneven stripe. You can also place stippling around an embroidery design. You use a feature in the software called add holes to cut a hole in your stippling. So for those of you who don't like to do free motion stippling, you can actually embroider your stippling. You send it back to the machine, you add your batting and backing to the back of the design, and you can refine your position with a feature in our B990 called virtual positioning, and perfectly embroider your stippling around that design. You can also scan in a pieced fabric and create in the hoop quilting design. And you can scan in printed fabric that you printed a photo on and use our color photo stitch program to embroider on parts of the printed fabric. Sometimes we applique, and through washing and wearing, the applique may need repairing. In this case, this design was scanned in, and an additional line of applique was added around the part of the embroidery that was being pulled apart. It was sent back to the machine, and now that applique is repaired. Another fun technique is to thread paint on your fabric. And so again, you scan the fabric that's in your B990 and use the freehand tool in the software to add your embellishments. Reshaping is possible. Sometimes when we free motion, we can't correct our mistakes as easily because it involves a seam ripper. But here we have the ability to draw on the fabric and then use our reshaping to perfect our stitching. A little bit of more thread painting, we can fill in the fabric, and we can even digitize on the edge or off the edge, depending on the look that we want. So if we want it to look more freeform, we digitize slightly off the edge. Let your fabric inspire you and add texture to your fabric. These triangles were created simply with a closed object tool and a ripple fill in the software. We can also add embellishments to applique. So we may have finished an applique design and now we want to add embellishment. So again, the capability of scanning a hoop, bringing it back into the software to add some more detail is certainly possible with the B990 and software. So you may wonder, how do I learn? You do offer, your store will offer classes at the store on basic exercises in the software. There are also mastery workbooks that are available for download on the website. Some stores participate in a monthly club, or you can join the software building blocks and participate in a monthly club that teaches you additional things about the software. There are software webinars such as this one where you can learn how to use the software. And there are many online virtual classes that are offered. In addition, there are 274 video instructional tutorials that are included with the software. So let's talk about the Bernli bag. I want to show you how to create this, and then we'll come back and I'll show you some slides on how this stitches out. So I'm going to open up the software and I'm going to right click on the grid icon. I want to activate my grid. And this is just going to give me a guideline for creating my in the hoop design. I'm going to check snap to grid, and I want to change the grid spacing to 0.5 inches. Now I am currently in metric, and I'm going to change this in a minute, but I can type in the inch symbol and the software will do the calculation and we'll change that value to, I keep hitting the wrong key there, there we go, and we'll change that value to millimeters. I'm going to click OK, and currently I need to go tell the software to do that again. Now I'll change to the US system. That way it's much easier for me to keep track of inches than it is in millimeters. We're going to select the rectangle tool and a single outline, and we're going to draw what's known as a placement line. I draw by clicking in the upper left corner and dragging to the lower right corner, clicking again, and my rectangle is created. I'm going to press the escape key to deactivate my rectangle tool. And I'm going to select that rectangle and I can make it a specific size. In the transform toolbar, first of all, I need to unlock proportional scaling. That way I control the height and the width separately. I'm going to change the width to 4 inches and the height to 6.5 and press enter. And then I'm going to move this rectangle so it aligns with my grid line. And I just move it by clicking and dragging. I'll select copy and then I'll select paste. And I'm going to change this to a different color. I want to create a color stop here. So by changing it to a different color, the machine is going to stop in between the placement line and the tack down line. Now I'm going to click on Insert Embroidery, and I'm going to navigate to my design that I want to insert. And this is the Bernli design. I'll click on Open, and you can see it inserted over here. I'm just going to click and drag and place it about 2 grids above. I'm not going to worry about aligning it right now with the placement line and tack down line. I'll take care of the alignment in a minute. The next thing we're going to do is draw stitching lines for the zipper placement. Here I will use a tool called the Open Object tool. And again, I want to select a contrast color. And I'm going to come down 1 grid line from the top and click and release the mouse and come across and click again and press enter. That added a straight line that's going to be a placement line for the edge of the zipper. I'll draw a second line, and it can be the same color, on the next grid line. And actually it needs to be 2 grid lines. So whenever you need to backspace, I just hit the backspace key and I'll click and press enter. The backspace key will allow you to erase a click that you didn't mean to make. So you have the opportunity to make changes. So now I have my 2 placement lines for the zipper. I'm going to select those placement lines in color film. This shows me kind of a running list of all the colors that I've used in the design. I will copy and paste those. And again, I'm going to change the color of the copy. And I am going to add a pattern run. So a pattern run is a decorative stitch that's built into the software. And if I right click on pattern run, it brings up object properties where I can select the pattern run that I want to use. I'll click on the select, and you have lots of different pattern runs in the software. You can even make your own pattern run, so you can create, again, anything that you can imagine. For this pattern run, the one that I chose is NP005-04, and I'll click OK and OK again, and you can see that that pattern has now changed. I'm going to deselect by clicking away from the design and select the bottom design and click on Mirror Y. That reverses it, and then I'll use my arrow key, and that's the up arrow key. Sometimes it's easier to hide the grid in order to use the arrow key. So I'm going to hide my grid, and then I'm going to move that design up so that it is right along the edge of my placement line. Now let's add lettering. And for the lettering, I'll go to the Lettering and Monogramming tab, and I'm going to right click on the lettering to open up my lettering object properties. And here you can type in Bernli if you wish, or you can personalize this with your name. I'm going to choose the London font. Actually, I think on the design I did Blackboard, so I'll choose Blackboard. There are 109 fonts in Designer Plus software. There are 60 in Creator level. And I'll increase the size of this to 0.75. And I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to click on the screen to add my lettering. And I'm going to make that lettering red by clicking on the red color chip. And I may want to curve this a little bit, so I'm going to double click on this to reopen object properties. I'll click on the circle CW which stands for clockwise, and I'm going to change the baseline radius to 3. Now, how do I know 3? You experiment, and you use the up arrows that are right next to the baseline radius until you find the look that you want. When I click OK, that lettering will be slightly curved. Now I'm going to select the top rectangle and copy and paste, and again change to another color. And then we're going to paste again and change to still another color. So what I want is to bring in this stitching just a little bit from each edge of the cut line for the bag. So I determined that I want to do 92% in width and 95% in height. And you press enter to activate that change, and you can see now you have top stitching around the bag. I'm also going to change this to a triple stitch. You have all these different outline stitch types in the software. And so you can experiment with the type of outline that you wish. Now it's time to align our designs. So I'm going to select everything with Control A. I'm going to go to the Arrange toolbox, and I'm going to align centers vertically. And that perfectly places the lettering as well as the design within our bag. Now, as I look at my design, I have, and I'm going to just run through color film to explain what each of these lines will do. I have a placement line. That placement line serves as a line to tell me where to place my felt. I used felt to stitch out this bag. Then I have a tack down line that holds that felt in place, then the design stitches, and then the placement line for the zipper. There's going to be a color stop so I can place the zipper on top of those placement lines, and then the decorative stitches holding the zipper in place will stitch, as well as the stitching for the lettering. Then I have another tack down line that will be used to tack down the back of the bag. And then I have my final stitching that is going to top stitch all the layers together. So we could make a change. If I want this to stitch out a little bit more efficiently, for one thing, I could make this flag, and the Bernli design is grouped. So I can hold down the Alt key and select just that red flag. They don't need to be different colors of red. So I can make that the same color as my lettering as well as my top stitching. And then the software has a feature called Design and Optimize Color Changes. And it says the operation will reduce the number of color changes from 13 to 10. I can click OK. But in looking at this, I need to bring the lettering and the decorative stitch as well as the flag to stitch after this tack down line. So I'm going to undo that. Again, I mentioned that we have several layers of undo. So what I want to do is change this to a different color. And then now when I do design and optimize color changes, it still reduces the number of colors, but it doesn't combine with that tack down line. Now I do need to move the zipper placement line to stitch before the decorative stitch. And when you see how this bag stitches out, I think you will understand why the placement line needs to stitch before the decorative stitch. So now I'm ready to save that. I save that and I click on Write to Card Machine. I can choose the type of machine I am going to send it to. Currently, the B990 is not turned on, so I'm going to save it to an EXP and I will download it on a USB stick and take it to my machine to stitch out. So I'm going to return to the PowerPoint to show you how this is stitched out. Now, this is the placement line that stitches on your stabilizer. And I had a larger piece of felt, so I just did hoop the felt, but you can actually use just the stabilizer if you only have a small piece of felt and stitch the placement line just on the stabilizer and then place that piece of felt over the stabilizer and then stitch the second line, which is the tack down. So those would be the first two rectangles that we created in the design. And then you go ahead and stitch your design as well as the name that you choose to use. The next step is the zipper placement line, and this is why it needs to go first. You can see the placement line is stitched here on the bag, and I don't think you can see my mouse, so I'm going to add the laser. So here's the placement line. And then I lay down the zipper, aligning the edge of the zipper with the placement line. I used OESD tearaway tape to hold the zipper in place. The next thing to stitch was the decorative stitch. And then the next step is very important. You want to unzip the zipper. So you bring the zipper into the bag, and I actually unzip the zipper and cut through the top layer of felt before I did the next step. That it's just easier at this point to unzip the zipper and get in there and cut the top layer of felt. That's what creates the opening in the bag where you can store either USB sticks or your mouse. Then I removed the hoop and placed a layer of felt on the back of the hoop. That is what finishes the bag. Placed the hoop back on the machine, and then the outer tack down stitches, and it stitches right on top of those other stitches, and that's what tacks down the back of the bag. And then the inner securing top stitch was done, and you can use a rotary cutter. Then you can remove your bag from the hoop, use a rotary cutter to cut along the outside edge of in the hoop bag. And then you can open up the zipper and finish cutting out the felt that's underneath the bag, as well as the stabilizer. The stabilizer will need to be removed in order to have the opening in the bag. So then I could unzip my zipper, and it's a perfect size to store your B990 mouse if you have that, or any other mouse, or you can use it to store USB sticks. So I am ready for questions. And Emily, I don't know if you were able to ever get on. So are you on the line and can field questions?
Yes, this is Emily. I am on Haley's account. So hello, everybody.
Okay.
It's a team effort today. We actually don't have any questions in the questions box right now, but I wanted to let everybody know that in the chat area, I added a Dropbox link for you to download the art file and the PDF instructions for this adorable little Bernli bag. If you're not able to download the Dropbox link, the link and the art files will be available on bernina.com in a few days when we load the webinar. So does anybody have any questions? We got a love the project. Thank you for the presentation. Well, if we don't have any other questions, Debbie, do you have any other final words for us today?
No, I just hope you really embrace the software. If you have it, learn the software, just keep working at it. If you have the software, repetition is the way to learn. Rely on the tutorials, and again, the online classes. Maybe I should show where you find online classes.
Sure.
If you are interested, you can go to bernina.com and learn and create, and go to the virtual classes. And there's all sorts of classes if you wish to learn more about the software. Also, I'll just show you where to find those tutorials. I'll go back to the home screen and I go to tutorials. I go to featured tutorials, and here's where you find all the tutorials that are addressing different things that you can do in the software. As I mentioned, there are currently 274 video tutorials on using the software. And there is a search function. So if you want to learn, for example, about color film, you can search and the tutorials will appear.
Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us today. And the Dropbox link and the art PDF files will be available on bernina.com in a few days in case you weren't able to download that. We hope to see you on a future Bernina of America webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Emily.